You are listening to the Complete Developer Podcast, the podcast by coders, for coders, about all aspects of creating your best life as a developer.
I'm Will, the accomplished developer and aspiring software architect.
And I'm Beej, the advancing journeyman developer.
Complete Developer Podcast is supported by listeners like you. We are now on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Complete Developer Podcast.
Hey guys, so welcome to Resolutions for 2018. This is the episode where Will and I talk about our New Year's resolutions from last year, sort of the goals we set for the year, and whether or not we hit them. And then we will discuss and tell you all about the ones that we are setting for this upcoming year. But before we get started, Will, what have you been fighting this week?
Well, speaking of fighting, I had a bunch of martial arts friends in town. They put on a seminar and all that, and so I got to go.
Nice.
And I am, 6 weeks out of hernia surgery? 5 weeks? Mm-hmm. I forget which. I could probably figure it up in my head, but it really doesn't matter that much. And I didn't completely have an all clear from the doctor as far as what I could do. It's not like, last time they told me, they're like, wait 6 weeks before you lift anything over, 20, 30 pounds. And I kind of did some hip throws this weekend.
You got excited there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So anyway, I didn't die. I don't think anything's leaking, so we're good.
Will likes hip throws. He got real excited when you said that. He waved his hands around and everything.
Hey, I like it when they work. When they don't work, that's pretty much most of the time. And I did have some that actually worked. So
nice.
Yeah, it was fun. I got to see some people I hadn't seen in a pretty good while, and just hanging out with that crowd. I forgot how much I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much my entire weekend, other than making spaghetti and meatballs with spaghetti squash, which I haven't tried yet, and I'm going to eat after this podcast recording.
Nice. Well, I've been getting ready for our Developer Launchpad holiday party coming up next weekend. Next week should be pretty fun. We've got our work holiday party on Monday, and then the Developer Launchpad party on Saturday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, Move Over, Ice Bucket, and Ice Bath Challenge. I've got the True Cold Challenge. So you talked about hanging out with some of your old martial arts buddies.
And a lot of them are into the Wim Hof stuff, too.
Yeah. I hung out with some of my old high school buddies. I rode my bike down to hang out with them this past weekend, and it was in the 60s when I left, so it wasn't that bad. It's like middle of the day. I'm expecting to hang out for an hour or two. I completely forgot what happens when I hang out with those two.
And what happens with weather in Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, no, I knew the weather was going to get cold. I just thought I would be riding back during the daylight.
Oh.
I expected to spend a couple of hours and then ride home. And then we walked around for a bit. We sat outside. It got cold, so we went inside. And about an hour or so after sitting inside, I'm like, guys, I gotta leave or I'm going to freeze.
Was this Sunday or was this Saturday?
This was Sunday.
Okay, yeah. I remember.
It wasn't even that late Sunday when I left. It had just gotten dark, and I'm like, all right, I got other things I gotta be at. I wasn't expecting to stay that long, but guys, riding a motorcycle 80 miles per hour in 30 to 40 degree weather.
See, because I was having problems with the heat in the house. It was getting too hot.
Yeah.
And I went out. I had to walk the dogs, and I went outside in shorts and a t-shirt, and that wind hit me.
Uh-huh.
And, I was almost sweating in the house. It was so warm. And, Oh, man, I can imagine riding a motorcycle back in that, not being prepared.
See, I had my leather jacket on, but I didn't wear my chaps. So, my legs just had thin jeans on. And so, it was cold. Dude, I am still cold.
Yeah.
Today, thinking
about it.
No, I'm still cold. I haven't warmed back up completely from that. That's how bad it was. But speaking of ice bucket challenges, I've got something to help automate that for IoTs. So let's go ahead and roll the music. This week for IoTs, I have a fun project titled Automatic Ice Bucket Vendor based on Arduino. Now, this is an interesting project from DF Robot. The engineers there decided to take the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. but they did it in and I'm quoting here, the maker way, by building an automated ice bucket to dump the ice water on themselves. Using an Arduino and Romeo V2 to drive the motor, they built this with an ultrasonic sensor to detect when a person is within range of the bucket. It then fills the bucket with ice and water and dumps it on the challenger's head. It only took 2 days from conception to a fully functioning prototype, which is really cool. Of course, what do you expect from the engineers of some place like DF Robot?
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. While maybe not the most practical of exercises, it's still kind of fun way to raise awareness and practice some IoT and robotic skills. And I'll have a list of the hardware and a link to their project in the show notes. Who's talking to us?
So this week we grabbed a tweet from John Wells. It says, at Complete Dev Pod, I'm 13 years of part-time dev, SAS, C#, VBA, Python for my corporation, only an AS degree. Think I could qualify for a senior dev? Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? I don't know, first of all, what he means by part-time.
Right. And is this 13 years of doing it part-time the whole time?
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends, because you could have 13 years of part-time work that has just as much as 5 to 8 years of full-time work.
And you've got the experience with the older tech,
right.
Because 13 years ago, that's what you dealt with, because I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say this is a toss-up. I think you could probably qualify for a senior dev job. It might be tricky. The big deal is going to be getting past HR and the other gatekeepers, and then impressing the people with your skills, at a level to overcome this. Because to some degree, they're going to go, hey, this is part-time work, depending on how you couch it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely with an associate's degree, you can get a senior dev position.
Yeah. I mean, that will help, having the degree. I mean, obviously, you couldn't jump out of, straight out of an associate's degree into a senior dev.
Right. No, I'm saying, but with that and the experience, you can get a senior dev position in some places without any degree and the experience.
Yeah. I guess the thing with understanding the definition of a senior dev is that it is not the same everywhere. There are a lot of places that look at it and go, okay, a senior dev should have, they should be able to do certain things and, have certain capabilities. And then there's places that are like, yeah, you've been around a while. You'll kind of see that in the senior developers that you deal with. And if you're interviewing them, you will definitely see it. You'll see the ones that just basically have time and grade. And then you'll see the ones that are like, they've got the fire and they've had it for a while and they're really working on it. And so it kind of depends. If you can get it to where your perception is, or where people perceive you in the camp of people that have the skill, then you will get it. And if you can't, you won't. And I know I really hate giving an answer like that, this is one of those it depends kind of answers.
It really does. Another thing that you might look into is, I don't know if you've got a specific place in mind or if you're just looking in general, but looking at a place where, for example, where I work, we don't have mid-level. There's junior and advanced.
Right.
And so the mid-level, like, you have junior that covers up to kind of a certain amount of mid-level, and then advanced kind of takes over at the higher end of mid-level and into senior.
Yeah.
And so you might be able to find a place that doesn't have a mid, or even go out for a mid-level position, do that for a year or two, and, I hate to say the term, but get time and grade for it.
Yeah, because, I mean, that is, unfortunately, something that does get respected a little bit more than it should. You and I both know several developers that really should not be considered senior developers who are.
Exactly. So, John, we want to thank you for the tweet. Send us a DM with your contact information, because we've got a Complete Developer water bottle just for you. Guys, if you'd like your very own Complete Developer water bottle, leave us a review in iTunes or comment on the website or any of our social media. We post all of our episodes to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google+. We're also on Path and Tumblr, and very recently on Instagram, though we haven't posted much there. Check us out each week on Facebook Live, Twitter Live, or Periscope. We'll be adding more to that list as we go along and learn more about doing live broadcasts. You can join the conversation anytime via our Slack by going to slack.completedevelopernetwork.com. So the theme for this year has been setting and accomplishing goals. Halfway through the year, we reviewed our progress toward our goals. And before we really get started, I want to review what a SMART goal is. So we're going to go over a brief review of SMART, and that's an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. The specific means this is the who, what, when, where, so forth of your goals. General goals are good for the long term, but they need to be broken down into more specifics. Next is measurable, and this defines the specific criteria for each goal to be able to track it and break it down and qualify your progress.
Right, because if you have a goal that you can't actually quantify that you did something, in other words, you go, oh yeah, I'm doing this better. Well, what does better mean? Mm-hmm. That doesn't really help.
Right. Next is attainable. You have to be able to reach the goals. If you can't, they're just lofty ideals. Attainable doesn't mean easy, though. You need to make these challenging, but within the realm of possibility.
Right. And, one thing, last year is I had a goal that was very attainable, and I didn't hit it.
Yeah.
And there were other things that came up that made that not happen.
Right.
So it's not that you can't, it's not about you can or can't. It's just, it's got to be hard enough to be challenging and not so hard that it's impossible.
Now, next is relevant. And this means that your goals require time and commitment. When it gets tough, they still matter. So when, life gets in the way, when other things happen, these goals still matter. I had a few goals on here that we thought we were going to have to, we talked about this at our mid-year review. We thought I was going to have to put aside because of things that came up, but they were important enough goals. Yeah. They were relevant enough that I still went after them. And we'll talk about whether or not I reached them, which one of them you guys should already know, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And finally is time bound. You need to set a start date and a target date to achieve your goals. Now, we kind of did this last year. We got specific on the months we wanted to reach things in. For myself, what I want to do is reach my goals by the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's basically the same thing here. I mean, it's great if it happens earlier. Mm-hmm. I think you and I both are kind of into longer term, planning horizons at this point. Like, we're not looking a month ahead; we're looking a year ahead now.
Right. And I had some last year that were I want to reach it by this point in the year or that point in the year. This year, my goals are all I want to reach them by the end of the year. And then I'm going to break them down further. And we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is a lot of mine are more of, hey, this is a practice. This is a continual thing I want to do. Not, it's not so much, hey, this is an end goal and, there's a final, termination point. It's, I have a goal to continue doing this every day.
So we're going to start by reviewing last year's goals and talk about whether we hit them or not, what impediments we faced along the way, and what we did to overcome those. Next, we'll discuss our goals for 2018. And for each of these, we'll kind of rotate between myself and Will. And then after that, we've got something new that we're starting this year. And that's going to be goals for the podcast, or more specifically, goals for Complete Developer Network.
Yeah, basically our business interests.
Yeah, because we kind of want to be as open as we can with you guys about that. And we may have other people, some people may want to start something similar to this or just understand the process. And so the Complete Developer Network is sort of the overarching business structure that is our podcast, Junior Developer Toolbox, and our meetup group.
Yeah, which is Developer Launchpad.
And then when we start publishing, it'll be our books and other things like that.
Yeah.
So starting off with a review of last year, I will go first. My first one was to buy a new laptop. Now, even though I had some unexpected things happen, my truck getting stolen, I honestly, at that time, I thought I would not be able to get a new laptop.
Yeah.
I remember we had this conversation. That is actually what led to the episode.
Right.
The mid-year review. Was, hey, I'm not going to be able to reach this goal, and something big came up. We never discussed what do you do if something big comes up.
Yeah.
I still managed to get a new laptop, got it on tax-free weekend, and I've been enjoying it and all the benefits of actually having enough RAM to do something.
Yeah. And This has improved stuff for me a lot as well. I know it was one of your goals, but holy cow, did I hate that crap top. Because you just never knew what was going to go wrong. And then like we would finish, recording like a couple of episodes back to back, especially that was always the worst. And then you've got to save that.
And it takes hour to save.
Well, and it took an hour before.
Right. To get it set up.
In between, it was just awful. Mm-hmm. It was chewing up so much time. And so I'm really, really glad that you hit that one.
It's made it to where before I got the new laptop, it took 2 nights per episode. Now I can do everything to edit and get an episode ready to publish in one night.
Yeah.
Because it's just that much faster. And it really makes a difference.
Well, the other thing too is you're not sitting there waiting for it to suddenly die and screw you over.
Right.
My first goal was to meditate more often. Here's what I wrote last year. Meditate more regularly. This is still a goal. I'll be mixing in a lot more yoga though, as I think the lack of flexibility in my legs is hurting my seated meditation. Now, the result on this was mixed. I did do a lot more in the latter part of the year and am meditating daily now. I did a lot of yoga towards the beginning of the year, and then...
I know, you kept trying to get me to come to your yoga class with you, but...
yeah, it would be good for you.
The timing, I think, was the issue.
Yeah, the timing was an issue. I didn't do really well. It wasn't really the first half of the year. I think it was from about April. Because you remember how everything just started snowballing?
Oh, yeah.
On the podcast, and then it was like, what was the other thing? Music City Code came up, and we had to scramble around for that, and it just like kept on spinning. And it felt like there was a good part of the year that we had to put a lot of effort towards progress just on the podcast and just on other things. Some things changed at work as well for me, and as a result, I just didn't meditate very much during that part of the year. Now I started back. It's been, I don't know, a month or so, I think, that like every single night, pretty much, I've gotten in 45 minutes to 2 hours. And
that's not on my list when we get down to it, but that's something I should probably start doing.
Yeah, it would help me. Yeah, it evens you out a lot.
It would help my stress level, for sure. All right, so I have my 6. Guys, you hear it right now. I'm adding a 7th, or a pre, as to start meditating.
Yeah, and the other thing I started doing, too, was about once a quarter, going and getting in the sensory deprivation tank. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, several times I've done it for 90 minutes, but sometimes I've done it for 3.5 hours as well. And you meditate in there. And what has been helpful with that is that it basically gives me a lot of time to really think things through, and also to realize just how much stuff is bugging me and which things are bugging me.
I don't have as much problem with time to think things through because I don't have, like, I'm
you don't
just
have the commute. Yeah.
I don't have the commute. I don't have family obligations and stuff. So, like, I have a lot of time in the evenings where it's just me sitting there. I'm like, you know.
But there's no distractions is the other thing, too. Like, there's nothing else you can go do. And so I found that pretty helpful. I did keep that up even without all the other things going on. I still did that.
Awesome. So my second one was to become a permanent employee at work. And we discussed this at the mid-year review. I became a full-time employee back in February. So we hit this one pretty early. That's kind of awesome. You know, hey, it's had its ups and downs just like anywhere. But overall, I really do enjoy my job. I some days are more stressful than others, but I really do enjoy what I do. And I'm quite happy with it. So I'm glad to be a permanent employee. I'll probably be there for a while now. So
my second goal was to lift more often and get to where I could deadlift 450 pounds. I think this is a reasonable goal for the year, and I wanted to get back to doing feats of strength. Now, I started the year off, I think, reasonably well.
We were both working out at the beginning of the year together.
Yeah, we were doing pretty well there for a while, and then other circumstances intervened. And then in March, I bent down because I was cleaning the basement, and I bent down to pick up a piece of paper off the floor, and something twisted in my back, and it put me down on the concrete. And that wasn't a result. Yeah, and I don't know exactly what the deal was. I don't think it was from working out. I think I just twisted in a weird way, because you can do that without lifting. I mean, there's a lot of people that'll tell you, oh, these injuries are from lifting. And they're not. No. I've had this lecture over and over again. Oh, you shouldn't be lifting heavy at your age because, I know all these guys and they're, they used to lift heavy and they, they're all messed up now. And it's like, how many of them played football? 100% of them played football and slammed into each other and they drank heavily and they're fat and they're not taking care of themselves. And you're using that as an example of why I shouldn't lift when I don't do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of frustrating. But anyway, that dropped me on the floor. And so there was about a month there that I couldn't really move around as well as I would like. And I was like, I'm not about to, put a bunch of weight on my back and do a squat or, try to do a deadlift or even swing a kettlebell. It's like, I'm just going to let it heal up and ease up. And then everything got just absolutely swamped in the middle of the year. And I put this on the back burner. And then in August, I get sick, get a sinus infection, start coughing. And one time I was sitting up in the middle of the night, coughing really hard, and I felt something squish in the very extreme of my lower abdomen.
Yeah. Without
saying exactly where that was, but you could probably guess. And that was a hernia. So that pretty well killed that one for the year. So it was, I started out pretty well, and then events spiral out of control on that one. So that was kind of a miss.
So third on my list was to speak at a conference, code club, or user group meeting. I accomplished this in October, same time Will did the same thing. I spoke at Bar Camp, which is an unconference here in town, about the developer's role in Scrum, and then again at a boot camp here in Nashville about code smells.
Yeah, and the weird thing is this was not one of my goals for the year last year.
Right.
I was not going to speak publicly. I was not interested in that. And I loudly and very vehemently told that to my mastermind group that I was not interested in doing that. And I've spoken at Nashville Software School 3 times. I spoke at Covalence once, and I also spoke at DevSpace once, and I may have another one before the end of the year. I can't remember.
Yeah, I actually at Bar Camp met someone that we both knew a while back. Well, and he is now a developer, and we're putting together a panel to submit for Music City Code.
Nice.
And we're going to try to speak at.
I mean, I just didn't realize how much I would enjoy it. Like, this should have been a goal of mine last year. That's like the worst, is when you're like, you get there and you go, yeah, I achieved this goal, but I didn't write it down. It's just all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And you just go.
Yeah. Well, I knew I would enjoy it because I've spoken before.
But you wouldn't have guessed I would have enjoyed it until probably June.
Yeah, probably.
Like, there's something that just like the switch flipped.
Yeah. Well, I also I saw you at Music City Code, and then I think part of it too has been us running the meetup group.
Yeah.
It's really, I don't want to say it's brought you out of your shell, but it's given you an opportunity in an environment that you're comfortable, where you are in control.
Yeah.
To get out and experiment with that kind of speaking. And you realize you see what I see in it now.
Yeah. So yeah, that should have been my goal. Wasn't, but hey, I still hit it anyway. So, considering some of the things I didn't hit, that's nice. So my third goal was to do better with my editorial calendar. Finish the book. And the book at that point was 4 chapters and a little over 100 pages in per what Scrivener's output was. There's just, there's a lot more depth than I thought, and I had to rework things. And, I also said I wanted to post more often on the podcast website, my personal blog, social media, etc. And my task last year was to get into a regular writing cadence. And at that point, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning and doing a lot of work then. And I can tell you that goal has shifted a little bit. I am doing a lot better with the editorial calendar. I do have certain days that I write on, and I make sure that things are prepared, where I can do that, like Tuesday evenings, and typically some point either on Saturday or Sunday, I'll take an hour or two and really work on writing. Now, that said, it's mostly content for the podcast or for our email newsletter.
So this is interesting that this was your goal last year, because 2 of my goals upcoming have to do with more writing.
I think my suggestion to you would be to look at it kind of the way I did, in that I want to establish a regular writing cadence.
Yeah.
Not, I want to write certain things.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Because that's what I should have done. I was real specific. I was like, I'm going to finish the book. And I got like 7 or 8 chapters done, and there's, I think, 14 or 15.
The thing is, also, with that, we started writing a book last year that was completely unplanned at the time, and it's going to be an audio book that comes out next year. It is one of the goals for next year, is for that to come out.
Yeah. And, so there was all that. We started the email newsletter for the podcast.
Well, we started it back up, but yeah.
Yeah, we started it back up. We actually started it initially and then dropped it because we were too busy. And, so I've gotten into that regular cadence. I also keep a journal, like a monthly journal of like kind of how I'm feeling about things, where things are, what my goals are. And I wasn't doing that as well then. And I've, started back. I think I've emailed you a couple times because it's been funny, like stuff I've seen in there from like way back when I was doing it about like you being late all the time or, not having your stuff together. Because back then you didn't. Yeah. And it's just it's a reminder of where you were. And so I think I've done this pretty well. From a perfectly legalistic perspective, I don't know that I completely hit that goal, but I think I did from a intention perspective.
So my fourth was to outline and begin writing a book for autodidactic developers. And specifically, I wanted to have the outline done by May and have a first draft of section 1 by the end of the year. Well, the book is mostly outlined. We got that done. Will helped me out with that. It's not detailed as much as I would like. I got a little distracted, and this was kind of what I was hinting at earlier, when you and I decided to start writing a book together. That's fully outlined and mostly recorded. We've got 3 chapters left that we just need to record, and then I need to edit, and you need to write that up.
Yeah, and I've got to do all the marketing spiel. So it's still going to be quite a bit, but it's way closer.
And so this one kind of got put to the side because of another goal that came up during the year.
Yeah.
And that happens. That's something that we do want to emphasize, and that's why we had our mid-year review of goals, is because, hey, things come up that change your goals, or, what you thought was your goal at one time may no longer be an important goal. Yeah, it may no longer be relevant. The timeline may be different.
The money may be different.
Yeah, it may not be attainable.
You may just sit there and go, I didn't know I was capable of doing this other thing.
Right.
That could produce a whole lot more results.
Yeah. So that's what happened there.
So my fourth one was to finish my punch list of home improvements. And this was stuff like getting the backyard fenced in, completing the weight room floor, doing network wiring throughout the house. And I wanted to do this so I could start tinkering with some of the smart home stuff that's available and just kind of wire this place up like I wanted. I think I did pretty well at this. I got a lot of stuff done. The weight room, as it stands, is pretty close to where it needs to be. I do have some more flooring to put in that's probably going to happen this week. The whole back injury thing and the whole hernia thing kind of got in the way of that because, hey, if you're setting up a weight room, guess what? You get to move around.
Weights.
Yeah.
Also, you did refloor the upstairs as well.
Yeah. So that was the other thing too, is we refloored the top floor of the house where my daughter's room is, because the dog was going to the bathroom in there a lot. And, it had carpet. It's like you can clean it, but it's white carpet.
Yeah.
And it was just it wasn't in real good shape before. And so we replaced that with a floating floor. So there was that. Most of the network wiring is run. There's a couple of plugs we got to put in still and a few other things. As far as the backyard getting fenced in, I actually decided to hold off on that. And the reason I decided to hold off on that is, we added the back door and the deck so that the dogs could go out the back. But the thing is, they have to go down one flight of stairs, out through the garage and out the back door to the backyard. And so I was thinking I could fence it in. And my older dog has developed really, really bad arthritis, and she can't go down a flight of stairs anymore. So if I were to fence that backyard off, I would now not have a place for them to go.
Yeah.
That she could actually get to. So I'm just going to hold off on the fence.
Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that was just one where it's like, yeah, circumstances have changed. And so I just decided to wait.
So my fifth one was to lose 50 pounds by October. Well, I did not accomplish this. I came close. I lost around 25 to 30 pounds, and I went down an entire pant size. So I'm still making progress, but hurting my toe and then breaking my foot kind of kept me from exercising enough to lose the weight.
Yeah.
And so I just wasn't able to. You and I both had several injuries this past year that kind of prevented us from some of our things. But like I said, I did go down a pant size, which is exciting. I've seen friends and relatives that haven't seen me in about a year.
Yeah.
And all of them are like, you've lost weight. Looks really good. So I obviously lost enough to where people are noticing. Not quite where I want to be, but, that gives me something to shoot for next year.
So my fifth one was to improve my personal brand. So that was like one of the things that was a possible option that I was really resisting at that point, was getting into public speaking by way of a user group somewhere.
Yeah, which is really funny because earlier you said that you weren't, like, public speaking wasn't one of your goals.
Well, I mean, I was wanting to, that was an option that was on the list. Some of the other things were like blogging and, that kind of stuff. And that was just one possible way to do it. And I really, really didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable. And basically the deal was to try to increase my visibility in general. Now, this was a total win on this one.
Oh, yeah. Total win.
That was a crushing victory. That's what the middle of the year, like all the stuff that messed up all the other goals went here.
Yeah.
And I
agree
handled.
with you. You totally rocked this one.
Yeah.
You knocked this out of the ballpark, man.
And that's all I got to say about that, to quote Forrest Gump.
So my final goal for this past year was sort of a lofty one. It was to do 100 one-arm kettlebell swings per arm as a warm-up to deadlifting.
And I told you it was lofty.
Oh, I knew. See, I knew it was lofty. I knew this was my out there goal. And I didn't quite accomplish this one either. I did get 100 swings in, but didn't get to the point of it being a warm-up. That was like the major part of the workout at that point. This is mainly because you and I stopped working out together. You hurt your back, and so I wasn't coming over. Then I hurt my foot, and I wasn't coming over, and just a lot of things happened.
Then the summer happened, and then the hernia happened.
Yeah. So, and then my kettlebells were over here, and I was working out at the gym at my apartment complex, which doesn't have them. So it's sort of one of those things. I've still been doing free weights and lifting, but I haven't been doing kettlebells. And, part my fault. I should have been over here being like, hey man, if we're not going to work out, let me at least get my kettlebells from you. But, part kind of circumstance and things, like I just, a month ago got out of the boot for my foot. So,
yeah,
it's sort of like that. I still think that this is a realistic goal. With all the things that came up and happened, I didn't get there.
Yeah, and I think you could probably do this. You could probably get there this next year. But I don't know that specific thing is exactly the way you want for a goal.
No, it's actually not. And we'll talk about that in just a moment.
My sixth goal for last year was to take more days off and use them for myself. And the reason is because I tended to work on my own stuff on my days off and not really take a day off. I did take one day right before Christmas last year, and I think I got a massage, and then I got a massage, a chiropractic adjustment, and then got in the float tank. And that was pretty much as close to a real, solid day off for my own stuff without family, as I got last year. And this year, I did better. I took a little bit longer trip when I went to MicroConf, and so my wife and I got to go out and mess around in the desert and all that kind of stuff. And that was neat. A little bit rough there. I didn't do as well as I should. I have 3.5 days left this year that I have to take. So like December 22nd, I have a half day of work, and then I go back after the new year.
Nice.
Because there wasn't anywhere else to put those days.
I understand that. I took some vacation time to go out with my family to Florida, and I got back and I realized why developers don't take vacations.
Yeah, because you got hammered when you got back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been the thing too. And where I work, they don't do that to you very much.
Right.
I mean, you get hit a little bit because that's just the way things are, but it's not like other places where I've come back from a week vacation and had 2 weeks worth of work that landed on me while I was gone.
So that wraps up our goals from last year. Now we're going to do basically the same thing and back and forth for our 6 goals for the coming year. Just remember, I have one pre-goal that I mentioned during the last years of meditating on a regular basis this coming year. And so that is something that I am going to work on in addition to my 6 goals, and we will talk about that at the end of next year. Starting us off, my first goal is to speak at more conferences and schools. I know Will talked about enjoying it, but I have always enjoyed public speaking. I really enjoyed putting together the talk and then presenting at the conference and at the boot camp. It was a lot of fun. I loved the interaction. The boot camp was great because the group they have there was awesome, and they're back and forth. And I think you had the same experience there. And I haven't gotten to speak at
NSS. It's the same way, but there's like 5 times as many people.
Right. So my conference talk, I had a couple of people talk to me from the audience and stuff, but there were, I think at one time I counted about 60 people in there. And I know that by the end of my talk, there were standing room only because people were standing in a like semicircle around the back for it. So it was awesome. People really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So this is something that I want to do more of. I've already submitted to one conference next year. I'm going to be submitting with a friend of ours to do a panel at Music City Code. And then I'm also going to submit a talk there too.
Well, my first goal is also more public speaking, and it's basically for the same reasons. I really enjoy it. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And the thing with speaking is that not only is it handy on its own, like it makes you more confident if you're used to doing that, but it bleeds into a lot of your other pursuits as well. So like if you're doing the speaking thing, people tend to treat you better. Mm-hmm. You know, as a developer and all that kind of stuff. The other thing I found out is I got a lot of good feedback on my speech that I was able to feed back in to the next version of it. It's like I'm iterating, especially like on that whiteboard talk.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. Like I really like iterating and constantly improving stuff, and that puts me in that workflow. Mm-hmm. And the other nice thing too is that showed me, exactly where people are coming from on this. So if we, when we build a product based on that, we've already got a lot of data.
That's true. That's very true. Something else that you might look into, and I've considered it too, is there's a group called Toastmasters.
Oh, yeah. I've looked into that.
And I know a few people that do it and have really enjoyed it. So something we might want to try.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen has been at lunchtime.
Yeah, they do a lot of lunchtime things.
And that's great for people that, like the speaking is part of their job, and maybe that's okay. And I'm actually angling to make that part of my job too.
Yeah. But like the thing I've seen is, of course, where I work, they've got a meeting in the building.
Yeah. Whereas for me, it's like drive up to Brentwood.
Right.
And so Nashville traffic at lunch, and you drive somewhere and you meet and you drive back, it's like you took a 2.5 hour lunch.
Right. So, yeah, you can't do that on a regular basis.
No. Not unless it's part of your job.
Right. So my second goal for 2018 is to start blogging more. I may rethink the book that I'm writing, as I've seen some similar ones out there, and I have a site that I want to turn into a blog, so I might start there and then work towards the book again. But what I want to do is more of a weekly, like I really enjoy writing outlines for the podcast and turning those into show notes. So what I'm going to start doing is writing outlines for a blog as well, and turning those into blog posts. So like one night I'll work on the podcast, one night I'll work on that.
Well, here's a thought too, and you can't do this through Amazon, but I've seen authors that will actually write the book on their blog, and it's totally freely available there, or you can buy the book. And so it's a way to get some money in and get used to that workflow.
Zed Shaw did that with his books. And then once he finished the book, it wasn't available on the blog.
Right.
But if you got there early enough, you got in and you were able to get that information. And so I'm considering doing that. I'm not sure, but what I am going to do is start blogging more, and I may angle it towards the book. And so my blog posts will be close to book chapters to where I can take the same outline, add more to it, or put it in a certain order.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that will buy the book just to have that in a hard copy. Mm-hmm. Because I've done that before. Yeah. Like I want the physical thing there. I don't want to go to somebody's website that may go down and not be there.
Right.
So that may be an option for you.
Mm-hmm.
So my second goal is to fix my sleep. I have not been sleeping very well since I think right around the time that hernia happened. I still wake up a lot at night, and it's kind of it's uncomfortable. And I've gotten in this habit of not getting enough sleep and then drinking a lot of caffeine during the day. Like I'll go through a pot of coffee easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got to fix this. That's not sustainable, because you still feel like crap all the time, even if you're awake.
What's interesting is I've actually been getting more sleep lately. And by lately, I mean like the last few weeks, but I haven't been feeling that well. So I've been going to bed earlier.
I've been doing a little bit better here lately, but I've noticed that even if I get, 10 hours of sleep, I'm not getting rested well. And I think that's partially around stress management.
Mm-hmm.
It's also my diet has been crap.
Yeah.
Especially since I had the surgery, because it's just like when you're hurting, when it hurts to walk, and it doesn't hurt real bad right now. Most of the time I get like an ache. You're not going to prioritize good eating. You're going to prioritize fewer steps. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And so I've gotten back on my diet. This is like the first full day of that. And I'm back on the whole low carb thing.
Yeah. He's not drinking beer, even though I brought some for him.
Yeah. But I'll hit that, Saturday. So yeah, it'll be fine. But I am trying to fix that. There's a lot of stuff I've got to do. I've got to back off a little bit on the amount of stuff I'm doing, or at least the amount of time that I'm wasting while doing things.
Right. Yeah.
I need to get more efficient probably as well. So it'll be some mix of those. I'm still kind of working out exactly what I need to do. I think also getting my diet lined up like it should be will probably fix a lot of this, because I think some of it's from sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
So, not having as much belly fat probably will, pull that in.
That's a good point. So my third is to pay off the last of my private student loans. Now, this is not my federal loans, not the big, huge thing. I wish I were paying that off. And yeah, this is a little bit of a give me, as I've been on a payment plan that has me paying them off by the end of the year. But it's also really exciting to get those paid off and just be done with them and never have to worry. That is other than rent, the biggest expenditure I have are my private student loans right now.
Yeah.
And so getting those paid off and being able to put more into my federal loans and get those paid off and then not have any student loan debt will be awesome. Also, once I get those paid off, I'm going to start setting some money aside to buying a new truck. Well, a used truck, but,
New to you.
New to me, right?
Yeah.
Buying another truck and, maybe eventually another motorcycle. But, I want to get out of the car and into a truck. I got the car because that's what I could afford with what the insurance gave me.
Yeah, and you're more of a truck kind of person.
Yeah, I really am. But yeah, I mean, I want to get back into, I want to get another truck, and I've also been looking at possibly getting a newer motorcycle, as well, because, mine's about 5 years old, so it'd be good to have a newer one soon.
My third goal for the next year is to start saving money for land to build a new house on. Now, our current house is pretty decent. We've been in here for 3 years and some change, but there's a few things I really, really dislike about it. One of those is that we have an HOA, so I can't do anything to my own property without asking somebody else's permission, and that person won't show up for 6 or 8 months. And that's why it was so hard to get the back deck built this last year. It took like 6 months just to get the guy to come over to walk like 3 doors down and look and say, yeah, you probably could build a deck here. So I don't really want to have that. The other thing is my daughter's 9 years old, and 16's coming. And so she's going to eventually need a car. She's going to be driving. And right now I have a very, very steep driveway, and we don't park our cars inside. So at the bottom of the driveway is the 2 cars. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, when she starts driving, I don't want her parking on that driveway. And the HOA has a rule that she can't park on the street. So I have to risk having 3 vehicles get totaled and the house damaged for her to be able to park here, like when she's new at driving. And that sounds unbelievably dumb. Besides the fact that, there's not really a lot of space. I don't have room around me. Mm-hmm. I have neighbors on one side that have got, 2 really cute dogs that yip all the time. And my dogs are constantly growling at them because they're 15 feet away. And on the other side, I've got neighbors that have got these, 400,000 candle power lights that shine right in the windows. And, you have to have blinds. You got to have all this stuff to kind of keep their light out. So I need a little bit of space away from people. So that's the thing I want to look at. And the basic goal here is to get enough money so that when I find a piece of land that I want, and, it passes all the tests, like it's got to do the PERT test and all, so you can build on it, then I want to pay cash.
Yeah, I like that
and
idea.
Just write a check and I have it.
Yeah, that's something I really want to do at some point, is to be able to buy a plot of land, and it's just me, so I'll get a camper first.
Yeah.
Live in the camper, because you can live in a camper cheap. Live in the camper, save up, buy a plot of land, live in the camper on the land, and build. I have a friend, actually you know him too. We have a friend that did this, and like he has a super nice house that he designed. Well, I think his wife designed, but he designed and built and has some really cool stuff in it that he was able to do because they lived in a camper for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So my fourth goal or resolution is sort of a fun one, in my opinion. And this is to go on a long bike ride. And by bike, I mean motorcycle ride.
Yeah, I wasn't visualizing you being like Pee Wee Herman.
Well, actually, we have...
Unless you like for people to visualize you that way.
I will say this. I do know a guy, and you went to college with him too, that he, I think, between his freshman and sophomore year, maybe, rode cross country. His dad's a preacher in Smyrna as well, and he rode and stayed at different churches from one coast to the other. And so, he did ride a bicycle like that. He just wanted to see if he could, and he knew enough people to stop at places and stay.
That sounds okay, except for the Rockies and the Appalachians, and the desert. Yeah.
But, he planned it all out and really enjoyed it. Me, I want to ride my motorcycle. And this could either be to visit friends. I have some friends in Colorado that would be really awesome to visit. I have some friends in California that I'd like to visit that I haven't seen since my wedding. So since 2012.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it would be great to go out and visit them. I also could go up and visit my sister in Cleveland or down to Florida and visit my sister down there. Anyways, I may combine this with a conference too, and ride to a conference.
Yeah, that's a thought.
Or I could combine it with both 1 and 2, and ride to a conference, blog about riding to the conference, and speak at the conference.
There you go.
So there's a lot of options with this one,
and you can eat healthy at rest stops, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm. You know what I'm going to be
doing? A food blogger.
No, I'm going to be talking about like the biker bars.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, look at me.
Realistic expectations are always good. So my fourth one is meditate and exercise much more frequently. I'm already back to meditating nightly, and I want to continue this in the new year. And I'm also currently reworking a few things in my workout area and setting things up where it's a little bit easier, just in general. For all this stuff. I'll probably also continue hitting up the sensory deprivation tank for long meditation sessions about once a quarter, kind of as needed. And I'll be getting back to regular exercise fairly soon as the hernia is pretty much healed. The thing is for this, I've found that my meditations tended to work better if I lifted beforehand.
So, something that I haven't done in a very, very long time, and I don't know about you, but you and I used to do this when we were in college, and I used to do this in high school too. I went walking when I was hanging out with my friends. I rode my bike down to visit my friend that was in town, and he was staying at his mom's place because he came into town to visit his family, and so we all met at his mom's place, which we used to do anyways because it's kind of a central location. We used to walk around his neighborhood. Now, mind you, back in college and maybe a little earlier than that, I won't say, we would walk around smoking cigars.
Yeah. I remember you smoking a pipe and walking around near Lipscomb.
Yeah, I used to do that too. But
I do that some.
We would. And that might be something you look into because we would walk around. We walked and talked. And it was like, it felt great. Like I got done with that and I'm like, man, I'm not exhausted. I'm hyped up.
Yeah, we go to the park and walk on the trails. Of course, my wife really, really likes really nasty, steep trails for walking, which are not, they're okay if you're trying to build your endurance and stuff, but if you're just trying to kind of enjoy nature. The other thing too is there's too many people.
Right.
Last time or the time before last when we did it, there was some gal who was clearly planning a wedding with her mother and her maid of honor. This is in Percy Warner Park or Edwin Warner, one of the Warner Parks. I forget which one.
Yeah.
And I could hear the discussion 500 yards away. She was talking so loud. Like, I do want to walk, but I don't want to walk in that.
Well, that's the nice thing about walking around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Is, you walk by somebody's house, and if they're outside, they'll wave at you, may say hi or something. But
Yeah, but it's not everybody's on the same trail and there's, 100 people out there. That and all the runners. The runners tick me off because it's like, I'm walking, I'm having a nice time in nature. Oh, you got to get out of my way because I'm running. Like,
on your left, on your left, on your left.
And it's just constantly people breaking you out of the mood. So, like, I don't like that much.
Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But, yeah, I mean, I do want to do more stuff like that and get out. Like, I really do need to push back on some of those things.
Well, Dave over at Junior Developer Toolbox and I have talked about getting together and walking and hiking and stuff more too.
Yeah.
So that might be something that, just like the three of us, or we could get a group together that just sort of goes to places that aren't as crowded.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
maybe not on like a nightly basis, but like once a week or something.
Yeah. That one thing that's, I really like about going to my parents' house is I can actually get out there and I can be in nature and not hear other people. Like last time I was there, my daughter and I slipped outside and it was right. I don't know. It was probably right at moonset. We saw shooting stars and all that stuff. And there weren't people talking.
Yeah.
It was great.
Right.
And that's the kind of nature experiences I want if I'm going to do it.
Yeah. That makes sense. So number 5 for me is to get into story writing, kind of along the lines of blogging. I've been thinking a lot about writing a story, specifically my story, maybe an autobiography, maybe
you've been through some stuff.
Yeah. Maybe a fiction based on a true story kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe a collection of short stories.
Yeah. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll see. But I've got some ideas. I really I've been thinking a lot about it. I'm like, I could take that, remove the names for
protect the guilty.
Yeah. And, make a good story out of it. I tell the story to people and they enjoy hearing it.
Yeah.
When I don't ramble. Sometimes I get rambly.
I've never noticed.
Ramble.
Yeah. Rambling man.
Yep.
My 5th goal for next year is to go on an actual retreat alone. Just think about longer term things and longer term goals. Zen founder, Rob Walling and Sherry Walling really talk about this. They've actually got a book on how to do it properly. But basically the deal is you go and you find like a cabin somewhere and you rent it out and you go stay there for 3 days by yourself and you work out like what your longer term goals are and all that stuff, like all the brainstorming stuff where you really legitimately get away and you don't have other obligations that can intrude. One thing I found that if I have a situation where I know other people can't jump in, I can think better. Because if I know I can get interrupted, I'm always like halfway cringing about the interruption. Mm-hmm. And, trying to, basically keep track of state so that when somebody callously interrupts, they don't screw everything up. And I can drop that if I'm in that situation. So that's something I want to do this next year.
That's really cool. Finally, my last goal is kind of similar to one of my goals from last year, but I want to drop another pant size. I would like to say 2 so I could be where I was in college, but being realistic, I'll say 1 by the end of the year. And to do this, I'm going to start hiking more. I know my dog's going to enjoy it. I'm going to get out and...
You got a good dog for hiking.
I do, yeah. But I'm going to start hiking more. I'm going to get out and walk more, things like that. Like I was saying earlier, I really enjoyed the walking that I did this past week. That's my last one.
Yeah, and my last one is to start pushing for some work from home capabilities at my job. I'm losing 2 hours a day to commuting, give or take. Some of that includes, driving to lunch and driving back because, if you're a developer, you can't really eat lunch at your desk without getting constantly pinged. So, I count some of that as the commute time, although I still think there's probably like an hour and a half, that's legit me traveling to and from work. It's supposed to take 25 minutes. It takes 45 minutes to an hour to get there, and getting home is an hour. Nashville's traffic has gotten substantially worse. They're doing a lot of construction on the route to get there. I can go back roads to get there and get around it and not hit as much of the traffic congestion, but it takes longer.
So you end up balancing yourself out.
Yeah. I mean, I take the longer route because it's more predictable, not because it's a shortcut really. But you spend a lot of time just driving, and I really want to stop doing that. And I also want to be able to do things like, I can bulk cook for the week and I can eat stuff out of my fridge during the week if I'm home. If I take it to work and eat it, it has to be heated up in a microwave, which really limits what you can eat because it's going to turn rubbery by the time it's warmed up enough for a lot of things. So.
Fair enough. When I didn't have a microwave, it limited what I could eat.
Yeah.
So like
just having one tool limits what you could do.
Right.
And so I want to angle for that, mainly just for quality of life.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all of our personal goals. We have a couple of goals for the network and podcast. The first one is to publish our first book. We have 3 chapters left to record. Everything is outlined. We just need to finish recording it, and then I'll start editing, and Will can start writing that up.
Yep.
So we're pretty close there. The next is to get sponsorship for the podcast.
Yeah, and we're pretty close on that, I think. I'm kind of working on that currently.
Yeah. That's Will's thing he's working on right now, but our goal is to have sponsorship by the end of the year. You know, you guys have heard us do some ads for some of the conferences and stuff that we go to, but y'all, podcasting's expensive.
Yeah.
It really is. And when we try to split the cost as much as possible, Will kind of takes more of the financial burden and I take more of the workload.
Yeah. But more money would make that, would ease both of those because we could cut some of the financial expenses, direct ones hitting us and potentially, automate / outsource some of the things that are lower value that we're constantly having to do. Like dinking around with WordPress is a big one for me.
We also want to increase our number of listeners, so tell your friends. When I was down visiting my friends this past weekend, I told them about it. And of course, neither one of them are developers, but I gave them both stickers and they're like, hey, I've got friends that are developers. I'll tell them about your show. They should listen to it.
Yeah.
So, and finally, we want to expand Developer Launchpad to possibly include another location. We are going to make one change next year that will affect the Nashville group. We're switching the days that we do things. So we've been doing 2 meetups a month, a social on the second Saturday and a code jam on the 4th. And we're switching those because we noticed the last 2 months we haven't had a code jam because of the holidays. And while the socials are fun, the code jam is more what the group is about.
Yeah, it's the more hardcore people.
And it's more, we're here to help you grow as a developer, whereas a social is a good networking, just hanging out with other developers and building community building. So we're going to put more emphasis on doing those, still do the socials, and we'll still have a holiday party at the end of the year next year, but we'll also have a code jam.
Yeah. That way they don't get short shrift because people probably do not want to skip, company Christmas parties or whatever and go code. They might skip it to go hang out with their friends.
Right.
And, just shifting that just kind of takes that into account and we go on forward with it.
Well, we've made it to the end of the episode and it's time to announce the theme for next year. Since this past year was about setting goals, we're going to focus on what you do with those goals and how you get there next year. The theme will be Build Your Story. And it will start in a couple of weeks with an episode called Writing Your Story. That pretty much wraps us up. Before we close everything out, Will, what do you have for us this week for Tricks of the Trade?
I just want to point out how valuable it is just every so often to kind of come back to center. The premise of this podcast is you're trying to build a good life for yourself as a software developer. You're building your career up. You're doing all the right things. But the goal is to be able to do the right things to build the career so you can have the life that you want. At some point, you do have to step back and actually start doing the things that you want to do with your life in addition to the career because life is kind of short. You don't want to build up a good life for its own sake. Rather, you want to build up a good life so you have a good life. And so I just want to kind of throw that in there here at the tail end of the year as something to strive for in the next year. As I know this year in particular has just been all work for me. And I've had to kind of realize how close to burnout I came and work back from that. So just want to throw that out there. That's all I got.
Stand by for Titanfall.
If you have a question or comment, please email us at neckbeards@CompleteDeveloperPodcast.com. Our theme music is an excerpt from Stand By for Titanfall by Pure Bells, available on SoundCloud and licensed through Creative Commons. The intro music for IoTs is Hillbilly Hip Hop by Jason Belcher. For references, show notes, and to sign up for weekly emails with extra tips and insights, be sure to check out the website at CompleteDeveloperPodcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at CompleteDevPod and like our page on Facebook to keep up with news about the show. Look for us each week on Facebook Live before we record each episode. Thanks for listening. See you next time.